I am Caroline Fenton for Yahoo Sports, joined now by former Heisman Trophy winner, NFL quarterback, and now football analyst Robert Griffin III. We had college football week 0. We're just a couple weeks away from the NFL, so we're going to start with a little bit of football. And I want to start in the NFL because it feels like this entire offseason, Robert, it's been a sense of inevitability with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And look, that's for good reason. That's fair, right? Back-to-back Super Bowl champions. In your opinion, are we poised for a Chiefs three-peat?
Oh, great question. Not going to lie, the way you just phrased that would trick a lot of people into giving that answer. But I will say this. I fully believe if you're picking a team to win the Super Bowl right now, you can't pick against the Kansas City Chiefs. What they've done this offseason, adding Xavier Worthy, they brought in Hollywood Brown. I know he's going to be out for a little bit of time, but they added so much speed, which last year was something that they didn't necessarily have on the outside, was that super big play ability. Now, they were still ranked really high in their downfield passing percentages when it came to across the league, but they didn't have that same feel they did when they had Tyreek Hill. So now you bring in Xavier Worthy, the NFL record holder in the 40, who is so much more than just a deep threat, right? Him and Brian Thomas Jr., who plays the Jags, are actually really good route runners. And you tag him with the greatest quarterback we've ever seen, in my opinion. He's not the greatest quarterback ever yet, but he is the one that we've seen, and he's trying to do something that no one's ever done. So I do believe the Chiefs are poised to three-peat. Until someone proves me otherwise, that's the team that I would bet on.
And I feel like so many of our conversations about the postseason are dominated by the AFC, right? It's who can contend with the Chiefs in the AFC. Is it, can Joe Burrow come back and stay healthy and bring the Bengals back to the Super Bowl? Is it Lamar Jackson and the Ravens? Is this year going to be different? But I want to go to the other side of the league. Let's go to the NFC.
Yeah.
49ers and the Lions feel like they're probably the favorites in the clubhouse to get back to not just the NFC Championship game, but to get to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Is this year different for the Cowboys?
That's I bet another good question. Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones came into the offseason. He did an interview and he said, "We're all in. We're all in for 2024." And they didn't make all-in moves, right? They got half their offensive line was taken through free agency. Tony Pollard, they lost Tony Pollard. They lost Stephon Gilmore at the cornerback position. And they didn't make any ground-shattering moves that made you feel like, oh, wow, they're all in. You know, you got the Eagles going and getting Saquon Barkley from a division rival. That's an all-in type of move. So I'm not of the belief that the Cowboys don't have a Super Bowl roster. I just don't believe they have the best roster in their own division, and that would be the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Cowboys have won 12 games 3 years in a row, and they found ways to win even when Dak Prescott was out with injury. So I don't want to doubt the Dallas Cowboys in the sense of, can they win 10, 11 games this year? I think they can. The question is, do they have the Jimmies and the Joes when they get to the playoffs to overcome some of the inefficiencies with the X's and the O's? Any coach I've ever talked to, GM, owners that know football, they understand that the X's and the O's don't matter as much when you get into the playoffs. It's all about who you have throwing the ball, who you have catching the ball, who's blocking for them, who's going after the quarterback as a rusher. And right now, the Dallas Cowboys on the offensive side of the ball, many people probably can't name many of their offensive weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb, and they haven't even signed him back. So I don't want to say that the Cowboys are going to have a different year. I hope they win 10 games, and then everyone's doubting them, and then they go on a playoff run, because that would be better than them winning 14 games and then getting to the playoffs and coming up short.
Which is probably the reason why a lot of Cowboys fans have been so frustrated over the last couple of years. It's great to win 12 regular season games, but if you get bounced in the wild card round, what do you have to show for it?
Right.
Who are we not talking about enough?
I mean, this is the problem with that question is, you mentioned the Ravens, right? You mentioned the Chiefs. You mentioned the Lions. It's very easy to predict teams that already did well, right? And then say, well, this team is going to be better. They added this, they added that. But what I think a lot of people don't understand is every team every year is different. It's that they call it that Super Bowl hangover, right? The Eagles go to Super Bowl one year, and then last year they fall off the map, right? They do get in the playoffs, but they fell off the map the last 8 weeks of the year. Well, it's not necessarily a Super Bowl hangover. It's the expectations. The expectation is you expect that team to play to that same level. And sometimes they just can't reach that. And it has a negative effect on them, their psyche, and everything else after that. So the teams that we're probably not talking about enough, it's probably, the Chargers. Why? Because the Chargers haven't had any playoff success in the past few years. But they bring in Jim Harbaugh. They get rid of their 2-star receivers and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Justin Herbert's going to be playing in a more quarterback-friendly system for him. Maybe not as much volume throwing the football, but he'll be much cleaner. And can they win in the trenches? But you know why we're not talking about them, Caroline? It's because they're in the same division as the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't think there isn't a team that we're not talking about enough. Maybe the major networks don't talk about them, but I believe that I talk about all the teams, the fair share amount, based off what's happening around the league. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint just one team, but if I would say the Chargers are a team that we should be looking at this year.
And to your point, it's underratedly difficult to get to the Super Bowl.
Oh
it's even more difficult to get back there. It's difficult to get in the playoffs in the NFL. Yep. I think Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes have kind of made us forget about how difficult it is to create a dynasty in the NFL. But we've talked a lot about players that are already established. But what I think what makes this season so fun and so interesting is the sheer number of rookie quarterbacks that we're going to see on Sunday. 6 rookie quarterbacks taken in the first round this past year. Unprecedented.
Yep.
And also feels like maybe not an unprecedented amount of hype for the first overall pick, because we feel that kind of hype every single year, but a whole lot of hype around Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. It feels like, all the conversation out of Chicago is, we've got our guy, we've got the solution, we're going to the playoffs, offensive rookie of the year season loading for Caleb Williams. Yep. Are you expecting that? Are those fair expectations?
No, I think there are fair expectations because, listen, the Bears were this close to making the playoffs last year. And they had a guy by the name of Justin Fields who they said, you know what? We don't think that guy's good enough to get us to where we want to go. We're going to trade him away to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a bag of chips next year. Not even a bag of chips this year, a bag of chips next year. So when you do that and you bring in Caleb Williams, you're saying this guy's better. But you didn't just bring in Caleb Williams. You brought in DeAndre Swift. You brought in Keenan Allen. You obviously already had DJ Moore there. And then you drafted Rome Odunze. So the Bears roster is better than it was last year. They have a quarterback that they believe is better than Justin Fields immediately. How can you not win more games and justify keeping your GM and your head coach? That to me was the risk. When you make these types of moves, if you don't win more immediately, it becomes inherently more difficult for you to have the stability around the quarterback that you need to be successful. That's why I said Eberflus should have been extended as soon as they decided to trade Justin Fields and as soon as they decided to not fire him, because you want your quarterback to be in an environment where not only he feels like he can grow, but the fans have the right expectation. But right now, if the Bears don't win, the fans will be calling for Eberflus's head. Ryan Poles will be soon thereafter, and it'll be a terrible environment and situation for a young quarterback like Caleb Williams. How do you avoid that? You win. They have to win more games than they won last year. And I believe they have to make it to the playoffs in order to justify all the moves that they've made, because just playing well enough isn't going to do it this year for the Chicago Bears. And that's the unfortunate portion of it. But I do believe they have their quarterback of the future in Caleb Williams. He's a special talent. And I've been evaluating him for 4 years now. The kid can not only, let me take that back. He's not a kid. He's a young man. The young man can play his tail off. I call him the Magic Man. I watched him take the ball when he was at Oklahoma playing against Kansas. I was calling the game. I watched him take the ball from his running back on 4th down after he had handed it off to him, just so he could get the first down for the team. He has a way higher level of thinking and football IQ than people give him credit for. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he does this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all looking forward to it. It's not just his talent and his ability, but also the infrastructure that's in place with the Chicago Bears. It's kind of rare for a first overall pick to step into a situation with as many weapons as he is. I'm going to miss your enthusiasm, personality every Saturday and Sunday and Monday night on ESPN. What's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, right here behind me, you see Out of Pocket with RG3 going to be focusing on the podcast, TV, studio, booth, what's to come. I can't give anyone any predictions at this point. Looking forward to what the future holds there, but you know, this thing doesn't happen, and the enthusiasm for the game and all of us having an opportunity to cover the game doesn't happen without the fans. So the support has been overwhelming. Really thankful for all the fans who support, and will, you know, go subscribe and like the YouTube channel to make sure that we keep doing this thing at the highest level. It's been, like I said, overwhelming support from that standpoint. So I'm very excited about the future.
Robert Griffin III here with us with Yahoo Sports. RG3, appreciate the time.
All right. God bless. Peace out.